Hello, it's Conrad Shazviner from Virginia Beach. I'm going to go over the ballot with you for Virginia Beach's ballot for today's election. On it is a question regarding light rail in Virginia Beach. Should the City Council adopt an ordinance approving the use of all reasonable efforts to support the financing and development of the Tide Light Rail in Virginia Beach? No. And the answer lies with simple economics. It will be built with borrowed money, taxed money, and the state and the nation will foot most of this bill. The initial cost is currently projected at just under $1 billion, but Norfolk history tells us that it's going to go over by a big margin. 33% is what Norfolk did, so it's going to go well over $1 billion to build this thing. Now let's assume that it's built. Every year it's going to run at a loss, and I'll show you how. Norfolk is currently exceeding its ridership projections by 41%. Good news. It still operates at a loss. Each rider not subsidized pays $1.50 to ride the light rail. Now, $1.50 times the current average of 4,900 riders a day is $7,350 generated for ridership. Now, extrapolate that over an entire year, $2.69 million. Now, operating costs run to $6.2 million for HRT, so it loses $4 million a year just to run the light rail. In addition, building it in Virginia Beach, it wouldn't significantly reduce roadway traffic. Up and down 264, you're still going to have a lot of cars. Virginia Beach Boulevard is still going to have a lot of cars. The light rail, it does not do much to bring that down, enough to justify the cost of building it. Also, building it is comparatively cheaper than, say, building a new interstate. But recall, we don't need to build a new interstate because we already have an interstate. The interstate we have is in really bad shape and is going to get repaved regardless of us building the light rail or not. So it would just double the cost if we repave or rebuild 264 and put in a light rail as well. In addition, the private economic impact will be so small that it won't positively aid the local economy in relation to the economic impact of the government support for it. So my final answer is to simply vote no for light rail. Also for things like school board, which I don't know too much about, to be honest, but I do know that they recently joined with the City Council, that I'm about to read about, in pushing for a 6-cent real estate tax hike to help pay for education. I didn't like that, so I would just as soon vote out the incumbents. Now on to the City Council. Glenn Davis is an incumbent. He's running again. A pro for Glenn Davis is that he's against the Convention Center Hotel. A con is that he's for light rail. Now, he helped design that question, in fact, that I just read from the ballot. His challenger isn't very open to the issues that I was able to read online. It just didn't have much issues on it at all. But he did say that he'd fight unwanted tax hikes and special interest projects. So I assume vote for McCormick because he might go against light rail. I live in the Kempsville district, who Harry Diesel is from, and he's leaving, and in order to replace him, I endorse Chuck Smith. Now, he's against the recent tax hikes in Virginia Beach. I suspect he's properly going to handle the public-private partnership agendas. He's very leery of them in Virginia Beach. He'll be fiscally responsible, and it just so happens that he is African American, and that would greatly diversify the City Council, which sorely lacks in such diversification. Bob Dyer is an incumbent and he's running unopposed. The Virginia pilot assumes just keep him in because he's earned it, even though he didn't say, well, what he earned to stay in there. And he was in there when they did the tax hike, so I'm leery of Bob Dyer. Rosemary Wilson's in there now. She is an incumbent. She's running against Kenny Golden. Kenny Golden's a Republican who ran against Scott Virgil and Glenn Nye in 2010, and he lost pretty big. He was a third-party candidate, but he's really Republican. But he leans Republican in the ways I like. So he's for the property rights amendment in Virginia. I'll read about that in a second. He's also against increasing Virginia Beach's reckless spending. He doesn't support light rail, and he would be against further tax hikes. So I greatly endorse Golden as opposed to Wilson. Now on to the mayor. The current mayor is Will Sessoms. He has 2 people running against him. And things I don't like about Will Sessoms is that he raised the property taxes, he supports the light rail, he's very active on the public-private partnership dealings, and there are rumors he's a bit of a bully to city council members. The guy I want to vote for is Richard Kowalowicz, or RK for short. He's leery of public-private partnerships and light rail proposals too. He's against property tax hikes. He'd want to limit city government to the essentials like education and public safety. So I'm going to vote for RK for mayor. Now for the Virginia amendments, there's 2 on the ballot this year. Question 1, it's a very long question, but it deals with an affirmation that private property is to be taken at just compensation value for legit public use only, not for the gain of private persons, private companies, or expanding the tax base. And I strongly endorse voting yes on that amendment. Question 2, should Virginia's General Assembly be allowed to be flexible with the start date of its veto sessions, but it's only flexible by about a week? I say vote yes on that. It's kind of inconsequential, but it won't do any harm, so I do say vote yes on that. Now for Virginia's 2nd congressional seat, which takes up Virginia Beach, the Eastern Shore, parts of Norfolk, and parts of Newport News. Who is in there now? Scott Rogel. I voted for him in 2010. He's a Republican. He's being challenged by Paul Hirschbiel, a Democrat. Now both of these guys are businessmen at heart. They both want to change the tax code slightly, different ways, mind you. Both profess to want to reduce spending, but both still support an income tax. Both preserve Social Security and Medicare. Both will fight to halt reducing military spending, because this is Virginia Beach, this is Norfolk, this is Newport News, a lot of military presence here. They're really against sequestration and reduction in military spending because of how concentrated it is here. And I'm not for any of that. I actually want a reduction in spending that is military spending, even here in Hampton Roads. So I say for Congress, 2nd congressional seat, write me in, Conrad Schesvetter. CONRADSCHESV is in Virginia Beach, ENTER. I'm a libertarian, get that out of the way. I'm for the fair tax. I'm for a government surplus compared to a balanced budget, compared to a deficit. I'm going to support a surplus. It brings the debt down the fastest. I'm for dramatically reducing spending. I'm for as much privatization of the entitlements, Medicare, Social Security, as I can get as a 26-year-old. That's very important for me, such privatization. It's the best security for people our age. I'm also for a reduction in military spending, as I mentioned earlier. I'm pretty much a radical, but that's truly who I am, and I'm going to write me in. I hope you write me in as well. That'd be great if you put me in, but I don't expect it. Still don't like the ideas. Now for Virginia's senator seat, it's an open seat because Jim Webb retired. He only served 1 term. He beat George Allen in the 2006 election. George Allen's running again. He's running against Tim Kaine. Both of these guys are former governors. Allen, the Republican, Kaine, the Democrat. Kaine also former head of the DNC. To me, both of these guys are big government types. And I sort of suspect that today Obama's going to win the election. I don't like that. But in light of that, I want a divided government. I don't want it to be easier for him to pass stuff because I don't like what he's going to pass. So I want George Allen in the Senate compared to Tim Kaine, who's much more friendly to Barack Obama than George Allen would. Plus it gets Republicans closer to a Senate majority. Doing that, it would be harder for the government to do things because it'd be so at odds, and that would reduce spending compared to the economies which is growing. It's good for the debt. This is what happened in the 90s with Gingrich and Bill Clinton. They didn't like each other that much, and it brought spending down in relation to the economy. So I am not a George Allen type, but I'm going to vote for George Allen because of the effect it's going to have for the government itself. The president. This is the big one. Now, I don't like pretty much anything that Obama has done. Well, there are things I like that he's done, but they're not enough for me to vote for him at all. Compared to me, he's a devout leftist, and he has presided slightly closer to the center than his actual beliefs would sort of allude. But, you know, presidents do that all the time, and I'm not really surprised. He still spends deficits in the trillions, and he's added 65% to our debt in just 4 years. And for comparison's sake, Bush doubled it, yes, but it went from 5.3% to 10.6% in 8 years of Bush. It's went from 10.6 to 16 trillion just in 4 years for under Obama, and there's no end in sight. And he's expanded government power, Obamacare, Dodd-Frank, all these regulations is just really slowing us down and hampering our freedoms. I really, really want Obama to not be the president. But I still suspect he's going to win. But compared to Obama, I do like Mitt Romney. But to me, he's still a big government type, even though he's running as a Republican. For instance, he'd increase military spending. He'd peg it at 4% of GDP. It's about 3.5% now. They've projected that's about $200 billion a year. I don't like that. That's just way too much money. We don't have the ability to afford that right now. Plus, he signed the prototype for Obamacare in Massachusetts, and so he says he's going to repeal it. Good thing. I don't like Obamacare, but he'd replace it with things that he likes from Obamacare, like the children who are okay, kids up to 26 can stay on parents' insurance. Okay, I forgot some of the other ones, but he's going to keep a lot of the stuff that Obamacare is currently in his replacement deal. So he's replacing a lot of Obamacare with Obamacare, or MassCare, Romneycare, however you want to call it. And he's thinking that's going to be reformative. It's not. It's the same thing I didn't like, and he's going to replace a lot of it with the same stuff. And it just seems better because a Republican did it. No, I'm not really into that. I prefer the fair tax. None of these guys are for tax reform that would be anywhere near to the fair tax. But compared to Obama's plan, I much more greatly appreciate Mitt Romney's plans to reduce taxation rates and reduce deductions. He says he wants to reduce spending. I don't see how, because he wants to preserve the entitlements as they are and increase military spending, which are the three main drivers of the current budget. But he says he wants to reduce spending, and it's not going to happen fast enough for my taste. So I can't vote for either of those two guys. But that's just me. I know people in my family are going to vote for Romney. I know many friends are going to vote for Obama, and that's all power to them. But I think I have a better option. Since I'm libertarian, I'm voting Gary Johnson, and this is simply a very liberty-like vote here. He wants freer drug laws. I want freer drug laws. He wants a freer social stance. It's just a freer social living. So if he wants that, I want that. That's good. He wants smaller government. I want smaller government. He wants a reduction in American foreign interventionism. A lot less wars than we would currently have with either Obama or Romney. That's a good thing to me. He's publicly in favor of the fair tax, and I love the fair tax. That's the biggest issue. It's even why I voted for Huckabee in 2008 in the Virginia primary, was solely because of the fair tax. And he's for the fair tax, Gary Johnson. I endorse that wholeheartedly, so I endorse Gary Johnson wholeheartedly. He's the closest candidate to my ideals, and it's really that simple. So in this Virginia Beach ballot for November 6, 2012, that's how I would vote. I hope you vote very similarly. You don't have to vote your conscience, but that's my conscience. In any case, still vote. Thank you.